Alright guys, we are back in my garage for another video, and today we're going to make sure that the MHD tune was worth it. If you guys saw my previous video, you'll see that the newest race car on the road is my BMW X7, because now it is full stage 1. And so I wanted to get a little more data behind that because I like to log my car stock, get a good point of reference, and this is something I can use in the future if I ever have issues, to compare the data logs and Dragy times and stuff to make sure that everything is still being consistent. So we're going to get some initial data here. I'll show you guys exactly what's being changed when we flash the car, and hopefully you guys find this video useful. Now, as always, for everybody that's new to the channel, I create these videos to help keep you updated on the latest developments in our community, as well as discuss technical topics so that we have a better understanding of how our engines work. So if you're interested in more videos like that, be sure to subscribe because there will be a lot more coming out in the future. Now, I want to preface this by saying, yes, I know this is the fastest BMW X7 in my street, but that doesn't mean that I know how to drive it the fastest. So I've done a lot of videos on my 340i where I was testing different shift points and drive modes and things like that. And here, we're just going to take it easy. It really was my goal with the 340 as well, but I'm going to try to explain it up front. My goal is consistency. So we're just going to compare apples to apples. In this case, I'm going to let the car do its thing. I'm going to shift the trans over to S. I'm going to put the car in sport mode because I don't have a sports plus mode in this car, and then we're just going to see what the Dragy times and logs look like. So let's go ahead and get some data. So let's start off with a little log. We'll do a 4th gear pull. All right, 2,500 RPM, go. Oh yeah, it definitely feels like more torque. Oh, this is gonna be fun. Thank you guys for sticking with me through this because I can already tell I'm really gonna enjoy this. And it's so stupid. Like, I mean, let's break the wall here. It's stupid. I get it. But this is fun. All right, let's get some more stuff done. Now, I should have mentioned, just because of the weight of this car and everything, I don't anticipate it's going to be able to hit 130 miles an hour easily. So I set up some custom Dragy parameters to make sure that we can get some numbers that we can compare it to, because especially when we go back to the stock tune, it's going to be even slower. So we'll see how fast it actually goes. Oh man, this is going to be a lot of fun, guys. So 130 is going to be hard, but it can definitely get up to 120 on Kern Raceway. Let's do that. Let's do that one more time. Just, I want to make sure. That felt really good. I don't know if we quite hit 130, but it was very close. Right at the end of Kern Raceway, at least indicated, it looked like we should have hit it. So hopefully that gives us a 60 to 130 we can compare it to. All right, we're gonna do another log just for good measure. So we've got some good comparison data. Start log, 4th gear. Not bad, not bad. I think from what I remember, this feels very similar to a stock 340i And I'm sure the Dragy results will probably say otherwise, but at least from this seat, that's what it feels like. It feels as quick as like a stock, smaller B58 powered car. And I mean, because this came with 335 horsepower, 330 foot-pounds of torque. This is the 2-port Gen 2 B58. But I don't know, with a tune, it's got to add at least 80 horsepower, even on pump gas. So I'm definitely feeling like there's a noticeable difference. Hopefully the data will reflect that as well. All right, and now the moment that none of us are waiting for. We got to flash the car back to stock. And again, this is just because I like to get baseline data. I highly recommend this to anybody that's tuning their car. Start off logging stuff stock, check how the car is, and then you can tune your car and log after, see what changes, make sure that the tune actually took, make sure boost and everything went up, and that should help ensure you're getting what you're expecting. So let's go ahead, make sure all this stuff is set, and yep, flash. All right, and just like that, we are back on stock tune. I can already feel all the excitement draining, but again, just critical to get this data. So let's go get some numbers. Well, I guess I should have expected that. I don't know if I got used to the stage 1 power that quickly or what, but it's just so much slower, man. It's so much slower. So, it is what it is. We'll only do this a couple more times and then I'm going back to my happy place. All right, let's just head back and go through these numbers, see what we got. I think that's enough of this. All right, guys, so now we're back. We've got some numbers. Let's go ahead and go through the data. So starting with the Dragy numbers, I did set up custom modes to get this data because, newsflash, it's hard to get a BMW X7 up to 130 miles an hour. Now, generally speaking, I mean, that is possible, but when we're looking at the length of Kern Raceway and trying to find an area with a valid slope and things like that, that's where it gets tricky. So using Kern Raceway, I set up a couple different custom modes, starting at either 40 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour, and ending at either 100, 110, or 120 miles an hour. And I just tried to start as low as I could, get as high as I could go, and whatever we actually accomplished in that time, that would be the data we collect for that run. So starting off with stock, surprise, we didn't get to 130. We didn't even get to 120. So all of our Dragy numbers ended at 110. So I know this might be hard to reference for you guys, but we will do before and after so you can at least understand the difference. So looking at our numbers again, the smallest run going from 50 to 100 miles an hour was a 10.53. Going from 40 to 100 miles an hour, it was 11.93. Going from 50 to 110, it was 13.93. And going from 40 to 110, it was 15.34. And I think the first thing that this indicates is that the car really struggles in the top end. I mentioned in my, car review that the B58 didn't really feel underpowered because you could still feel the torque. And when you would floor it or just try to accelerate hard, you could feel a little bit of that shove and the car would get out of its own way fine. But if you stayed in it, it really felt like it ran out of gas quickly. And this illustrates that perfectly. Going from starting at 40 to 50, we only have about a second or a second and a half difference. But trying to make up that extra speed up top, going from 100 to 110, we're adding over 3.5 seconds. So that's really where the car struggles, is carrying speed up top. And majority of that, of course, is due to the weight of the car. Now going to the stage 1 tune, thankfully things were a lot quicker. Although I think I mentioned that in the car, it almost felt like a stock 340. That was a lie. My butt dyno needs some calibration, but overall the car was definitely faster. So going from 50 to 100, we got down to an 8.21. The 40 to 100, we went down to a 9.26. The 50 to 110, we went down to an 11.01. And the 40 to 110, we went down to a 12.1. So overall, that's a 21 to 22% improvement for every single metric that we did like a before and after on. So that gives us a good idea of how much power we're making. If it's making the stock rated 335 horsepower, that means it should be making around 405 to 410 horsepower in its current state. And again, this is just a stage 1 pump gas tune. So we got an extra 70 to 75 horsepower simply from, sending a file through our phone. Really impressive to see. Also, some good news, we were actually able to get up to 120 this time. So looking at the 40 to 120, it was a 15.2, and the 50 to 120, it was a 14.11. So again, just kind of illustrating that there's a lot of time being lost trying to get up to those higher speeds. But maybe if I adjust my starting speed, I'll actually be able to do a proper 60 to 130. So I'll try that at a later date so we can have another point of reference for the future. So now that we know how fast the car is, let's go ahead and make sure that everything is safe and look at some data logs to compare the stock tune versus the stage 1 tune. All right, so starting off, we're going to look at the stock tune, and this is just a single gear pull in 4th gear to see how the car does. So we've got our RPM showing in DataZap, and the first thing I want to look at is boost. And here we can see all of these squiggly lines as boost tries to stay on target, and it does a pretty good job. So the green line is target, the yellow line is actual, and it's kind of going up and down, bouncing around that target. Now I think around here is where I see the most boost, or maybe up here. Yep, so it peaks at around 11 PSI. So generally it looks like it's around 9 to 10, and it just barely taps 11 PSI at 5,000 RPM. So, not too bad. I was making about 8 to 10 PSI on my Gen 1. This one making between 9 to 11 seems like it makes sense. It makes a little more power than my Gen 1 did, but otherwise, pretty safe and respectable number. Now let's remove boost. And next we'll look at IATs. Now this was run after my stage 1 tune because I already had my stage 1 map set up. And so I did the logging and draggies on that first. Then I flashed back to stock and tested this. So the IATs are a little bit higher. You can see it starts out at 82, drops to 79, then goes back up to 82 at the end of the pull. Now, outside it was around 40 degrees, so I think this is relatively high, especially for a stock cooling system and not that much boost. But I think a big part of this was because the front grille shutters were closed. And I showed that in my tuning video that I left them closed since it's winter. I want the car to warm up as quickly as possible, so I don't want them held open. Maybe in the summer, we'll mess with that, keeping it open and seeing how that can affect IATs. But at this point, this isn't a huge issue. 82 IATs isn't that big of a deal. So next, let's look at AFRs, and I think this is something that a lot of people will be surprised to see, but the car is making around 14.5 AFR all the way to red line. You can see a couple points, it's high 14.4s, 14.47, 48. Yeah, so the whole time the car is basically chasing stoic, and you can see when you set the target's actually higher than the actual AFRs, so it's adding more fuel than the car is requesting, maybe because the IATs are a little bit higher, for various reasons it might drop a little bit. But the goal here is to keep it at stoic because that's maximum efficiency. So this just kind of illustrates the stock software. It does not drop AFRs and boost or do what you might typically expect. On a stock tune, it's trying to stay around 14.7 AFR if at all possible, because that gives you the best gas mileage and the best efficiency. So now let's turn that off, and next I want to look at rail pressure. I've talked about this in the past, but even though it's a pump gas tune, I still recommend checking fuel pressure, because if a tune requests too much boost on a stock fuel system, it can still overwhelm it. It doesn't matter what fuel you're running. It's all about running the right amount of boost for your fuel system and the fuel that you're using. So I don't anticipate any issues at 10 PSI. And as you can see, it's all hovering around this 5,075 PSI mark, which equals about 350 bar. And that's generally the target for the Gen 2 B58. So if you look at the request line, it's basically just bouncing around the requested fuel pressure. And then let's see, torque limiters, none being hit as expected on a stock tune. And then the last thing I want to look at is timing. So we'll go through cylinder 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. And as you look through here, you can see it starts off around 6 to 7 degrees. We've got a couple corrections in the mid-range. And then as it goes up top, everything equals out and we get up to 15 degrees of timing. Now that's actually a lot of timing, you know, for pump gas, as most of you are probably thinking. But the thing is, this car is running such low boost that it doesn't really matter. The more boost you run, you'll see more combustion pressure, you'll see higher combustion temperatures, and that's typically when you want to run a lot more fuel and lower your timing to keep things safe. But because the way that stock tune is set up, it's running such a low amount of boost that you're able to run more timing safely. So as you can see, it's consistent across all 6 cylinders. Even on pump gas, like usual, we're seeing some timing corrections in the mid-range. I'd say that's really common even on a stock tune, as you can see, but cleaning up top is a really good indicator that everything's safe. All right, so that was interesting, but let's go ahead and check out the stage 1 tune. So we've already got boost pulled up and boost is going up. Instead of peaking at 11 psi and averaging between 9 and 10, now we're getting up to 15 to 16 psi. Let's see, I think the peak is around here. Yeah, 16.5 psi, that's the max that I've seen on this log. So that's what, an extra 5.5 psi, which is definitely going to be noticeable. That's pretty much what we see reflected in the Dragy times. So a lot more boost to keep the car accelerating all the way up to 6,500 RPM. So it's holding the boost pretty well. Granted, this isn't like a moon tune or anything, right? It's just a stage 1 map, not even hitting 20 psi. So I would expect it to be able to hold that boost level. So take that off, and next we will look at IATs again. Now this was the first run that I did in the morning when I first started getting data. So you can see the IATs are a lot lower. They're at 61 to 59 and then bouncing all the way up to 70 degrees. Now, again, I think a lot of this is attributed to the grill shutters being closed because it's not getting the extra airflow that could be cooling it down. If you got into an issue where the IATs were too high, the car does open the shutters to put extra cooling in the car, but this is safe. This isn't causing an issue, so it's perfectly fine. Next, we'll look at AFRs, and here's where MHD makes some of the big changes. So boost, of course, went up. And as you can see, AFRs are going down. So this is primarily to keep things safe. Yes, it's going to use more fuel. So for people that are worried about MPGs and stuff like that, this is a part of the reason why your MPGs can drop. If you guys are beating on the car more often, it's going to use more fuel while you're accelerating. So normal driving, no difference. But when you're doing a pull, it's going to be using a lot more fuel. And this is, of course, safer when we're adding the extra boost pressure the MHD tune does. All right, and then next we want to look at rail pressure again, just to make sure it's all good, sticking right around target. So that's exactly what we want to see. And then torque limiters. So I'm seeing a bunch on here. There are a couple of reasons for this. One is I don't have XHP on the car, so I'm not taking off any torque limiters. There is a potential that the car could be faster with XHP, but it's something we'll do down the line. Now these actual torque limiters, as you can see, the 131072, I made a whole video explaining what some of these torque limiters mean, and this is one of the more common ones that you see indicated anytime boost goes over target. So if boost is at 16 psi and it goes up to like 16.1 or whatever, typically that pushes your torque and your load over target as well, which means you're going to get this flag. So this will usually lead to throttle closures, and as you can see, if I adjust this, it goes over target, throttle closes to reduce boost, and then as boost gets back safe, throttle opens back up. So that's very common to see, especially on an off-the-shelf map, because boost control won't be perfect, but it is safe enough where the car can compensate for it. So let's turn that off, and then we'll look at timing one more time. Again, this is one of the biggest concerns with pump gas tunes. Is timing safe, or do I need to run ethanol? And so this is just 93 octane from Speedway, nothing special. Again, in the mid-range, we see a couple timing corrections and wonkiness. Unfortunately, I forgot to log timing corrections on here, so I will do that next go around. But you can just see comparatively, you know, when 1 or 2 cylinders are higher than the others, you can tell that there are corrections going on. But it starts to clean up and then towards red line, we have like 2 more corrections on 2 cylinders, but otherwise it's pretty good. So about 3 degrees of timing correction, I would say, is safe. Typical to see as you go through different tanks of fuel and stuff. It's just going to vary, especially on pump gas that doesn't have very high octane, but this is nothing that I would worry about. And still seeing up to 12 degrees of timing with, what was that, 16.5 PSI. That's really good. So I think that attributes to a lot of the gains as well and just makes the car a lot quicker. So very happy to see these logs. I'm going to continue running this tune. We'll hopefully do more logs in the future and try maybe a downpipe and ethanol, maybe some other bolt-ons. But this just gives us a baseline of what we can expect going from stock to stage 1. So yeah, those are the results. And I would say that I definitely think the tune is worth it. Adding an extra 70 or 75 horsepower safely, simply using an app on your phone is pretty much a no-brainer if you want a little more power. This isn't quite getting us up to like the N63 horsepower levels, but it's still a lot for this car. And I would say plenty enough that would satisfy most people. And again, if you want to add ethanol and bolt-ons and stuff, or even upgrade the turbo, there are options to do that as well in the future. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you'd like to see. Are there any other parts you'd like me to try, or any other settings in the tune you want me to play with? I will be messing with this over the next several months just because I find it entertaining myself, but I do want to create the content that you guys are interested in seeing. So I think otherwise that's really it for this video. So thank you guys for watching, and I hope this helps. And if you have any other questions or comments, leave them down below.